You can't control the ref. You can't control the crowd. You can't control whether you win or you lose. All of those things are out of your control. But there's five things you can control. You can control your body language, your attitude, your energy, your effort, and your competitiveness.
Hello, friends. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Mayn Idea Podcast, where today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Jasmine Rocha. If you love this podcast and want to support it, please take 30 seconds and leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Or share this podcast with a friend. It's so easy to do. Just pick one of your favorite episodes, send it to a friend who trains Jiu Jitsu, and let them become part of the community. There's also now timestamps in the show notes, so feel free to jump around to the part that interests you most, although I always recommend listening to the episode in its entirety. Jasmine Rocha is a jiu-jitsu black belt under her father, Vagner Rocha, and Vagner Rocha Martial Arts. She recently earned a double gold at the ADCC trials in Dallas and will be contending for the 125-pound Who's Number One world title on August 10th, 2023. If you want to be a world-class competitor, take after Jasmine, but most importantly, listen to her mindset, an unbreakable weapon that she brings to every match. I hope that you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Without further ado, Jasmine Rocha. Jasmine, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I'm assuming we're probably in between really tough training sessions, so carving out some time in your day means a lot. I appreciate it.
No problem, man.
So let's go back to 5-year-old Jasmine. I I listened to a funny clip. It almost looked like maybe you were talking to some other students at the academy, and you were reflecting on how much you didn't enjoy jujitsu when you started, which I find so interesting given one, your success, your tenacity, and then the family, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like when you first got introduced to jujitsu?
Man, I really did not like it. My dad
Yeah.
just would bring me to the gym every single day. Be like, hey, Jazz, it's time to train. Hey, Jazz, it's time to train. You know, he used to bring me to the gym every day. And he'd be like, hey, you're just going to do the jog today. And then I'd be like, all right, I'll do the jog. And he'd be like, all right, you're just going to do a couple drills. I'm like, all right, I'll do a couple drills. And then every day it was that same, taking me to the gym, forcing me to go to the gym.
Right.
I just didn't like jiu-jitsu. I mean, I wasn't super aggressive. I was always
Mhm.
super competitive though. So that was one thing. And I just always was losing. So I was like,
Yeah.
you know what, this sucks. I'm always losing. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it doesn't really bode well for people that don't handle loss well, because that's what's guaranteed to happen in the beginning, right? You're just going to get
Yeah.
steamrolled by people, let alone being like a younger child around some of the best athletes in the whole world. Did you feel like there was a point where you started to feel that like tide shift a little bit?
Oh yeah, definitely. There was definitely a point where everything started changing, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm good at this. Like when the light switched on, and all of the years of technique. I mean, this is at like 12 years old I'm talking about, so like
Yeah.
from 5 to 12, I was hating jujitsu and sucked at jujitsu, and then out of nowhere it clicked, and once it clicked, that was it. It was full steam ahead. But over the years, even after that initial click, I've had to keep
Yeah.
clicking inside of myself. Before, I didn't have any type of want in jiu-jitsu, but now it's definitely, with more success throughout the years, the want has grown.
Talk to me a little bit about that. So I come from an athletic background myself. It's a different sport in skiing, and I can remember, kind of like you mentioned, the very first time that I was like, "Oh, competition's kind of dope. Like winning feels incredible." And you're young, you're 12 years old, you're 13 years old, but there's something really powerful about that. How do you said that you're still experiencing that at different stages in your life, but how do you talk yourself through that? Like, you keep yourself going, keep yourself focused on that kind of thing when you're not getting those, the pats on the back from yourself or the rewards or things like that.
I mean, that's just a part of the journey with everything in life, not just jiu-jitsu, but all sports and all aspects of life. You just got to keep consistent, you just got to keep pushing through it. when I was younger, I didn't have that mindset, but now that I'm older, I'm like, you know what, like it's it's about where I'm trying to be. I'm not where I want to be yet, but for me to get there, I got to keep getting past these little obstacles and just keep pushing, persevere, keep pushing, consistency. And the second you stop, it just gets so much harder. And it took forever for that first initial click, but once that first click happens, everything starts to get a little bit easier, I feel.
Did that feel like it was more a mental or a physical connection?
I gotta say it was both. I feel like over the years, from 5 to 12 years old, I always was drilling, I always was training, I always was competing, and my technique never matched what where I should be. And then of course the mental aspect of it is a big part of it, which I still am learning my mental aspect of it. Even though I know almost you could say, I know a lot of technique, from 5 years old to 21. Now I know an immense amount of jujitsu,
Yeah.
but if the jujitsu doesn't click with the mental aspect, it doesn't matter. So it definitely was both, for the jujitsu and my headspace to, come together in unison. That's when I skyrocketed. I actually remember like the exact day it happened. Like it's pretty funny. My dad used to run these in-school tournaments.
Yep.
Like
They
he
weren't
used
rigged
to,
for the Rochas, right?
dude. No, they were the opposite. They're
Yeah, they were
opposite
like,
of
give
that,
her
to
the
say the
toughest
least.
match. Yeah.
I remember I used to be like one of the only girls in the gym when I was younger, and these boys used to maul me. And they used to all
Yeah.
be like 2 years older than me and, stronger and better. We had elite kids always growing up.
Yeah.
And these kids used to maul me in everyday training session. And then when I was like 12, my dad was like, we're going to do an in school tournament, which we did this like almost every year. And I don't even think I placed every year. And this one year he was like, "Hey, I got you a present. Someone sent you something." So it was like first sponsor ever. It wasn't even a sponsor. It was someone that we met that was like, "Hey, I'm gonna send you a gi." So they sent me a hot pink gi, bro. It was like vibrant pink. And the story behind that is like about a year before that, I competed at like a new breed or a Naga, and I was like a orange belt at the time, and this girl was like a gray belt, yellow belt maybe. I wonder where she is now. But I
Yeah.
remember right before I fought her, I went, "Dad, she's in a pinky. She sucks." And my dad
Oh,
was like,
and
"Oh,
then
don't
she
think
just
like that. Don't think
crushed
like
you.
that." She wrecked me.
Yeah.
I was like, I just got wrecked by a girl in a pinky. And then right before the in school tournament, he was like, "Oh, I got you a present." So he comes over with this pinky. He was like, "You're gonna kill it in this pinky." Mind you, I never won anything at this point. I'm
Yeah.
like, I haven't won a Naga or a new breed, let alone an in school tournament with all of our kids who were like goaded. So I'm like,
Right.
all right. So I put on this pinky and I submitted every single one of those boys. I didn't win. I submitted every single one of them at that in school tournament, gi and no gi, and then double golded, and then everything else from there was just up. I don't know what happened that day, but something clicked in Jasmine Rocha, and that's when I
Maybe,
became a
yeah, maybe
menace
there
to
was like a
society.
cosmic alignment with you and the gi as like the Power Ranger comes together and
For
you're
real.
just a
If I ever
monster.
start going downhill, someone send me a pinky. That's it.
What is, so I always wonder with training with guys, so maybe when you're younger now, how important is that in preparation for these bigger tournaments? Like, how much do you want same size, same tenacity females? How much do you want to train with elite top male competitors? Like, what's the best blend to allow your body to recover, to allow you to compete at a high level, to see submissions, take submissions? Like, what's the best mix there?
So I train with a lot of the guys in the gym, almost all of them, bigger, smaller. Um, Honestly, it's just really hard to find girls that match my aggressiveness and match my intensity in training. So it's really hard to do that. But I train with the guys like that. I
Yeah.
have some smaller guys in the gym and we go at it. I feel like if I can hold my own with a guy, I'm gonna hold my own with the top girls in the world.
Yeah.
But I do like to train with a lot of the girls because there's a lot of aspects of the guys can't mimic.
Yeah.
Like flexibility. Guys are
Hmm.
usually not as flexible as half the girls. Um, a lot of girls have like different techniques that they'll do that the guys just don't do. So it's very different body type as well. Some things that I can get away with doing with a guy, I won't happen with a girl. So I definitely have a good balance of training with both.
Mhm.
I don't just say, hey, I only train with girls, I only train with guys. I definitely have a great balance between the both of them. A lot of my training partners, honestly, are these teenage boys at our gym that are like not strong enough to like maul me,
Yeah.
but have the technique from like 5 years old to like now
Yeah.
they're like 16, 17, and they're all like my size and coming into their body. So those are like honestly my best training partners because they don't stop moving and they all want to tap me. They're all like, oh, I
Yeah.
tapped Jasmine today. They
It's probably nice for you to have like this family target on your back because I would assume that just elevates your performance a little bit in all
oh,
settings. Like
definitely.
whether as soon as you slap hands, you're standing up, you're sitting down, it doesn't matter. You probably just bring it to a little bit. It's like when you first get promoted to a different belt, you kind of have that like, oh fuck, I gotta live up to this, you know. So I
I
would
gotta
imagine
step
that
it
just
up.
brings it to a different
Yeah,
level.
no, definitely. We, as a family, we kind of like do almost everything together. So like
Yeah.
everything we do is like competitive. Like this morning, we were working out at 10 a.m. and I'm like doing my weights, and Achilles is looking over me. He's like, "That's how heavy you're doing." I'm like looking at him. I'm like, "Who are you messing with right now?" I'm like, "Dude, you're like." He's like wearing a knee brace and a boot, and he's like lifting, benching. I'm like, "That's all you bench, man?" And my dad's walking over, like, "That's it, man. This better be a warm up weight." So it's always like we're always kind of like just pushing each other. It's the same thing with training. I mean, we talk a lot. We talk a lot of crap.
So going through, I mean, mid-teens, right? It's a really interesting time for a kid, let
Yeah.
alone a kid who's seeing, you know, serious performance in a specific discipline. When you're faced with that kind of like, is this something that I could do? Is this something that I want to do? Is this something that, my family wants me to do? Whatever. When you're navigating those years of your life, are you seeing like the temptation in social life to go just kind of like dick around and not focus on sport? How do you stay aligned and focused through that time? Because I think that that's something that I mean, admittedly, is something that I always had a challenge with is balancing the two, like athletics and academics and sport, and then being like a quote normal kid who's trying to just live their life, right? How do you juggle those when you're growing up?
I mean, I feel like I never really had that normal kid life.
Yeah,
I mean, I was always, training, and I was like a normal kid, but like by the time I got to high school and things like that, I just realized I didn't really care for it. I was like, why
hmm,
am I here? Like I should be training. I'm here at school, and then eventually my dad took me out of school and put me in homeschool and things like that, and that's when everything for me started taking off. It was really hard to balance, being in school, trying to live a normal life, when in reality, athletes are totally different. We're at a totally different maturity level, totally different mindset. We have
yeah,
different goals. People are finishing high school and trying to figure out what they're going to do with their life. I was in high school my freshman year saying, I want to be a full-time jiu-jitsu athlete. And people are looking at me funny. You
right.
you just gotta like you gotta blur out the noise, and you just gotta stay on your path and just keep pushing. And I mean, it's easier for me to say that because I always had my dad, my mom, my brother. We're always
Right.
in that together. For other people, I can only imagine it's so much harder because there's just so much distraction out there in the world that it's easy to lose sight on what you want to do and lose focus and things like that. So for me, I mean, I was pretty disciplined by the time I was already like 15, 16. I was, full steam ahead.
Was there a moment ever in your adolescence or even lately where you've really questioned if this is what you want to do?
No, no. I mean, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. Like I love what I do and do what I love. That's it. Like I couldn't imagine myself going to school and doing something outside of this. I love to fight. Like, I love jujitsu. I love teaching jujitsu. I love running the gym. I love every aspect of jujitsu. It's like, it's hard for me to go and imagine myself doing anything else. It's impossible.
So, with that mindset and that kind of dedication, I feel like it's not rare in elite sports, but generally it is rare to find people in normal life that possess that kind of dedication to what they're doing. So with that mindset at hand, how do you handle things like loss when you have trained your ass off and you know you're one of the best people in the world and you're super competitive, and then you get RNC'd in a match in front of all your peers and the people that you love? Like, what is that? How do you take that moment and not just get crushed by it, right? Because we see a lot of people don't handle loss well at all, or maybe they try to come back from it, but it just derails them going forward. So how do you have those moments, come
You
back and
gotta
then win 2 in a row, win 3 in a row, just keep going forward?
you just gotta like realize like losing is really just a part of the journey, you know? Like it, my dad always says it's not losing, it's learning, you know? And I lost so much like growing up. Like I just like was so terrible that like losing was like a part of like an everyday thing to me. So like as I got older, obviously like it stings, you know? Like there's some matches I'm like, damn, shouldn't have lost that, you know?
Right.
But if you let that eat you up and like hold you back, you're just not gonna get past it, you know? I see some people who flip out after a loss. I'm like, why? Like, what? How does that help you? You know, like
Right.
you just gotta be like, all right, what did I do wrong? What could I do better? You gotta go figure it out. You know, being upset in the moment and things like that, it doesn't help. It just hinders you. You know, so you just gotta have that mindset that like, all right, this is just another step in the right direction. You know, I mean, if you went out there, you know, and you lost, giving 100% effort, and you tried your best, and you did everything you could, you trained right, you were eating right, you were focused. If everything in the training was right, and you still went out there and lost, it's okay. You know, the person's just better than you in that moment. They're not better than you forever. It's just in that moment they were a better competitor, you know, and that's normal. There's nothing to be ashamed of. But I mean, if you're in training, you're not showing up to train, you're slacking, I mean, and you're just like half-assing everything, and you go and lose, that's on you. You know, you lost. They didn't win. You lost. That's it, you know? That's the way I think about it. So you can't really let those losses just like derail you. You're gonna just stay on the track and stay consistent, stay focused.
Well, that kind of mindset's really beneficial too in the teaching aspect, right? Because you're going to have a lot of students that experience that for the first time, and they're going to go, Jasmine, what the fuck? Like, we trained so hard. I don't get it. I must suck at this. This is stupid. Why am I putting all my time into this? And you get to have that conversation with them as an experienced athlete. Say, hey, this is part of it. Like with every loss comes the opportunity to try and figure something out, which I actually wanted to ask you about, because if you look at like your record's pretty freaking fantastic, right? But there's two submission losses to the same submission, a rear naked choke.
Yeah.
And in those moments, that's a hard submission to deal with. But I want to ask you if you've come up with some sort of approach to prevent ending up in that situation. What is the best defense for the rear naked choke, to something we all get caught in all the time? So how do you look at the setups for that? How do you look at the defense for that? And maybe you can just uncomplicate rear naked chokes.
Yeah, honestly, the biggest factor in both those submissions were giving up my back. So it wasn't necessarily the choke itself, it's giving up my back in general. So I've been working a lot of that, you know, defending my back. Um, I think the first time was I turned guard in a sweep, and then I gave up my back and I just sat still. The second time was I went for a sweep as I was coming on top for a scramble. They took my back. So both of them were based off of scrambles that I just stopped. You know, I
Mhm.
just froze in a position that shouldn't have happened. And then, you know, just ultimately both those matches, the first one especially, I was not in the right mindset. But the
Mhm.
second time, I felt great that day, you know. So, you know, hats off to Tammy Musumeci. She's legit. I remember watching her fight when I was like 9 years old. She was fighting like her first world title. I was like, that's
Yeah.
crazy, you know, honor. But yeah, both of those, you know, were just like lack of paying attention to certain aspects on the back, you know, defending the back right, and then just leaving my chin up and things like that. But I
Mhm.
mean, rear naked choke is, you know, probably one of the strongest submissions in jiu-jitsu, you know. So I mean, I definitely, you know, learned a lot from both those. But I have great back defense now, and no one's taking my back anytime soon.
So is that when something like that happens, as a, do you look at those kind of things as a family? Is that like,
Oh yeah,
okay, like what's a Rocha family assessment like of something like that?
sitting on the couch, watching the fights. We'll sit there, we'll pull up a fight, we'll be like, all right, what do we do wrong? What can we do better? What do we do right? How can we continue to do that? We'll take notes. We'll just sit around, watch my match, and then we'll put on Achilles' match or put on my dad's match, and then we'll just watch and see like everybody has like their own little input. Like my dad's like, hey, I like this, do this, or my brother's like, no, I like to do it this way, or I'm like, I like to do it this way, and then we figure out what works for each body type and each person, and we just like all come in with our ideas, we all collaborate in that way, and we see like, hey, like you shouldn't have done that, like, and then we fix it, we'll practice it and things like that, and then apply it into the next training. So like, I mean, after that, I spent like the next like 3 months of training just starting like internal with people like with
Mhm.
seatbelt and hooks already and just getting out, Now I have so much confidence, in my back defense that I think it's gonna be a really hard time for anybody to take my back and choke me.
Yeah, I feel like that's a position that, I mean, everyone can get better at because, like you said, rear naked chokes. It's a gnarly position, and once it's sunk, it's very hard to come out of that. What do you tell it like when you're? I forget whose match it was that you were with. It might have been Amanda Bruce, but they had you in a rear naked choke, but you sat there and you were so calm about it, and you actually ended up getting out of it, and then switching the position, you get on top, and then Ezekiel. I think that was Amanda Bruce,
Yeah, she had a front
right?
headlock, like a guillotine.
Gotcha.
She
Yeah.
had a front headlock guillotine.
So, how much of that composure is your lifetime of training, and how much of that composure in the moment is you trying, like actively trying to stay calm? Because I feel like that's something a lot of people that train jujitsu struggle with is in the worst positions, like the absolute worst ones that you can get in, whether it's in a training setting or in a competitive setting where you have additional adrenaline, people watching, your coaches yelling at you, all that kind of stuff. In those moments, it's the hardest to stay relaxed, but staying relaxed is really your only shot at getting out of it. So, how much of that is trained into you, and how much of that is you, Jasmine, sitting there going, "Hey, chill, chill, like, try to get your chin over here."
I mean,
What's
I gotta say, like, majority of it is experience, because like you gotta have like a level of calmness. You gotta be like, hey, I gotta be calm, but then there's gotta be a level of urgency. Like, hey, you're in a choke right now. You need to get the hell out of here. You need to turn up, and you need to win now. Like everybody's looking at you, you're getting choked. That particular choke, I mean, I was just stuck. It wasn't necessarily like choking me. I was just like literally stuck underneath her. And I definitely remember like talking to myself like, "Hey, you need to get the hell out of here." And I remember like there was a moment when I was in that choke and I was like looking underneath her, and all I could see was Mo Jasmine. He was sitting there on the sideline and he was staring at me like this. I was like, I need to get that hell out of here. I need to show him that I'm gonna go win ADCC
yeah,
2024. So I turned up, and I got out of there. But majority of it's just a lot of experience.
yeah,
I feel like everything with jujitsu is like XP points. Over time it just builds and it just builds and it just builds. Like people think that it's just gonna come so fast to them. It's not. Jiu-jitsu
yeah,
is all about experience. Like the only way you build experience is training and competing. Training and competing. You're not gonna get that anywhere else.
yeah. I was just talking to someone about how important, like nothing has taught me more about patience than training jujitsu because you want so much more than it will ever give you, and the only way to get any of it is to just keep going over and over and over and over
one
and
Hundred
over and over
percent.
again. What's a week like for you? Like how often? I'm always curious about this because my career has been a personal trainer and coach, and knowing what I know about training and output and intensity, it's hard to get the body to recover if you're constantly training at a high intensity. But you need to train at a high intensity to be competitive in any sport. So how do you
100%.
guys manage your output within your family, without outside of the family and the academy, when you're training for something like a WNO or you're training for something like ADCC, or when you're not, and you're just getting your reps in and staying fresh and trying to get looks and stuff like that?
Honestly, my training for the year round usually just stays the same. I don't really believe in camps. I'm
Hmm.
always ready. I always stay ready. That's it. I train year round the same way. In a week, I work out about 3 to 4 times a week. and train. I
Strength train
train,
or
yeah, strength
strength
training.
train 3 to 4 times a week?
Yeah, about 3 to 4 times a week. Jiu-jitsu's every day, you know.
Hmm.
My Tuesday, Thursdays are like my more competitive jiu-jitsu days. So like Tuesday, Thursdays in the morning, we go to fight sports together, and those days are just scraps. It's just a
And
lot of
that, like
rounds.
that Tuesday, Thursday days at Fight
It's
Sports,
competition
you're going in there to
to
beat
compete.
people up
That's it.
and
That's
crush.
it. I go into that training with competition mindset.
Yep.
I go in there. I do my regular routines that I would do if I were fighting on a regular day. So
Hmm.
I always have like that. I'm practicing that. I have a
Yeah.
mental performance coach that he's taught me that, like, if you're not practicing the same routine before you go train to go compete, it's gonna feel completely different. So
Yep.
every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday as well, we have like a lot of rounds. I'm doing the same routine that I would do if I was competing. I have a certain routine that I follow in order, and then at the end of training, I analyze my training and I write down what I did good, what I did bad. I record all my rounds. So literally, we finish Tuesday, Thursday training, we go home, we sit on the couch, and we watch our training from that day, and we go, how can we improve it? And then on Tuesday, Thursday nights, we come to our gym and we train lighter. I'll grab like the smaller teenage boys and I'll go with them and I'll work what I did bad in the morning and fix it at night. So every day is
Love
about
that.
improvement.
Yeah.
Every day I train to get better. Every day is about 1% better. We always say, like, get 1% better today, 1% better. If you could get 1% better every day, you're going to
Well, then
surpass
you only
everybody
need
else.
100 days,
That's
right?
it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
something that I've always personally struggled with, and I try to have this conversation with a lot of people more just out of curiosity to see like what the right mix is. But what happens, from what I hear most people talk about, is you go in with the intention, right? I'm gonna train light today, and then the first person they train with wants, without communication, they're going hard, and so they just respond to tough, and then they end up in a role that's much more intense than they thought, and then every day that they train, they're not doing a good job of regulating their output, and so it's always hard, and then they get injured. But you're saying that there's these days that are very specifically dedicated to that, and then you really hold true to this lowered intensity on the other days.
Oh yeah.
And you
No,
do
you
that,
have
you
to.
said, by selecting the right style of teammate, yeah?
I select the right role. You're not gonna get a light role grabbing the hammiest guy in the gym and go, hey man, let's go light today. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
I
it's so
grab,
funny you say that
I grab a
because
lower
I was
belt
training.
or a smaller guy, and they really can't do much to you.
Yeah, I was training on. It's so funny you say that. I was training on Monday, and it was a newer student. We're about to start, and he's like, "Hey, just so you know, like," and he kind of points to some parts on his body that are like messed up, and I was like, "Yeah, it's cool, man. No worries." And then the second we slapped hands, it was like a blast double to try to pass my guard. And I don't think that they knew that they were training it. They're new. They're trying to just figure it out in general. So they kind of only know one speed. But that happens so often, right? As people go like, all right, hey, take it light, and then they get pissed off, or their ego turns on, and then they go super hard unexpectedly. So how much of that is trust in your teammates?
No, it's a lot of trust. You gotta have a lot of trust in your teammates, and it's all about knowledge as well. You gotta have like the knowledge of like who you're training with and why you're training with them. Like
Hmm.
every role is with intention. Like some days I'll grab a certain kid and I'll be like, hey man, I'm gonna roll with him because I know he's hard to sweep. So I'm gonna be
Gotcha.
focusing. Today's my day to focus on sweeping. I'm gonna try to sweep him. Or I'm gonna grab a kid that I know has a really good guard. I'm like, what, I'm gonna try to pass his guard. I'm not gonna grab like a kid that's a wrestler and ask him to play guard for me or something like that.
Right.
So it's all about knowing like your training partners, and being aware of who you're training with and having the right intention in each match. Like, hey, what's my goal? Some people just are rolling to roll, just to
Yeah.
go with the flow. Every training session has to have intention. Like, for example, my Tuesday, Thursday training sessions in the morning, I'm not necessarily thinking, I want to sweep them or I want to submit everybody. My Tuesday, Thursday training sessions are every time I'm training, I'm trying to put as much energy out as possible.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just drown the other person. It doesn't matter how I do it. I don't care if I'm playing top, bottom, if I'm sweeping, wrestling. The goal is to get them tired, drown them, So that's my Tuesday, Thursday is what I would do in competition,
Yeah.
overwhelm them. But then at night, I'm like, you know what? Let's focus more on technique.
Hmm.
I don't need to drown, some of these little 16, 17-year-old boys. I need to use them for what they're good for. I need to, all right, you guys are good at wrestling. Let's wrestle. You guys got good guard. Let me pass. So you got to know who you're training with and why you're training with them. A lot of people just train to train and don't have any intention behind it. And then we're like, why don't I get better, coach? And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, you're just going with the flow. Only dead fish go with the flow.
Damn, mic drop moment too. I think that's one of the reasons that in sport competition is so valuable is it frames things for you a little bit different. Like when you compete, you put a different just signing up for the tournament alone, that action of clicking submit, it changes shit, right? You click that and immediately
Shit got
after
real.
it got real. And that's something that not everyone experiences. And when things get real and then you go do that thing and you come back and you want to be better, it just starts to paint a picture of what structure can look like. And if you don't ever have that, it's showing up after your 9 to 5 and trying to get your fitness in via jujitsu. And that's a really dangerous place to get your fitness in because you're putting yourself at risk and you're putting other people at risk too, right? If you don't understand intensity given skill set. Do you guys have a big mix at the academy of people that are interested in training and those that aren't, or is
Yeah.
it pretty focused down to
We
competitors?
we have a pretty big mix, like of people that are just hobbyists and
Hmm.
people that are just competitors. Honestly, yeah, it's a really big mix. But like for example, like Tuesday, Thursday training, we'll be training at night. Class ends at 7:30. Class is done at 7:30. You can go home. But me, I was here last night till 8:30, 9 o'clock. The competitors always stay, and we get them extra rounds, and you see who's about it, who's here, who's still grinding, who's still pushing. So like there, and you have to have like that balance of some people are competitors, some people are not. It's not meant for everybody. Um, but you definitely have to know like who you want to go with, who you want to focus with. Sometimes I'll roll with some of the hobbyists. Like last night, I rolled with this girl. She doesn't really compete that much, but was like, I'm going to train with her. Just because they're a hobbyist doesn't mean they don't have technique. Let me say,
Yeah.
they still want to scrap. They're just not ready to go compete yet. So
When
you gotta
you
have that balance.
when you have those later night rounds or the competitors or someone who's maybe starts as a hobbyist but they're starting to show some of that interest, what are characteristics that you look for in someone that really demonstrates that you think that they have that next step to even have the potential to like become great or have the potential to be competitive? What are those things that you're looking for?
First off, competitiveness. That's it, right off rip. If you have someone who's giving you that crazy eye, they got the look in their eye, like what, I want to fight. I want to go past just training. That's always a good sign. And someone who's always looking to just get better, like asking questions, like the person who's after class watching you train. Like I have some people that I'll be training and they're still there, not training, just watching.
Yeah.
That in itself is something big. Being able to sit, study, watch. That takes a lot. There's not. I know a lot of jiu-jitsu athletes who are professional athletes that don't watch jiu-jitsu.
Hmm.
How do you not watch jiu-jitsu? How do you not study what you do? You know,
Yeah.
that's a big one right there. Someone who's interested in the sport. That as long as they show interest, that's all they need. Anybody who's got a small amount of willpower and a lot of interest will go far.
Yeah, it always blows my mind when you hear a lot of different mindsets from professional fighters, but when they're like, I don't know, I don't even watch tape, like I just show up and fight. I'm like, how do you not like okay, you don't maybe you get heebie-jeebies or whatever or anxiety of watching fights, sure. Have your coach watch it. Like the disadvantage you're placing yourself at for not watching the film of your competitors, it's like a cheat sheet that's just there and everyone can use it if they want to, or watching your own footage, like it's such a valuable tool to get the visual learning going on with the physical learning at the same time to make adjustments and be competitive. So how would you not want to spend some time just doing it, because that's a huge learning component. It's not
Yeah,
all
it's
with
true.
just what you do.
Yeah, something that I also recently learned with my mental coach is I used to just like watch jujitsu like as a fan. You know,
Yeah.
not just as a competitor, but like sometimes I'm just watching jiu-jitsu like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that, instead of watching it with intention of like studying. You know, it's two
Yeah.
completely. Sometimes I'm watching as a fan, and sometimes I'm watching as a competitor. You know,
Mhm.
so sometimes I'm like just there, like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that, and then like sometimes like, all right, Jazz, you're gonna focus. You know, how did they do that? Why did they do that? Like you have to like focus. Sometimes it's not just about watching. There's got to be intention behind what you're watching. You know, some people are just watching it to watch. You know, so there's definitely got to be like that nice fine line of like,
Yeah.
am I watching to study or am I watching as, as a fan?
We have this absolute legend at our academy who's in his 70s, got his black belt last year. And whenever his body's like the slightest bit hurt or not recovered, you'll see him in the corner sitting in a chair with a like an old clipboard, like an old school clipboard and a piece of paper. And he's like writing and taking notes. And I was watching him do that one day and I was like, man, he just totally gets on a different level because if he can't physically learn with his body, he's writing stuff out and he's taking notes and he's watching position and he's doing stuff. And yeah, he may be at a point in his life where he's not going like three, five, hard rounds in a row and training for competition, but he's getting this mental component that's so valuable. And I don't know if you can really overstate that for any sport. Just visually watching what's going on with intention, trying to actually figure out something that's happening in front of you instead of just it's like showing up training just to train. You're there, but are you really getting anything out of it?
Definitely. There's a lot of people who just show up just to train and have no intention behind it, you know? I always say like I have like teammates that are competitors who get injured and then I don't see them for like periods of time that they're injured. I'm like, "Hey, why are you not at the gym?" They're like, "Oh, I can't train." Okay, you got eyes. You can watch. You can still show up to training and, watch what we're drilling, watch the live goes, take notes, Like you can learn so much by just watching jiu-jitsu. You don't necessarily have to be doing jiu-jitsu to learn jiu-jitsu. I mean, like it
Well, I
makes no
think that's what
sense.
separates you from a lot of people, Jasmine.
Yeah,
It's like that kind
it's
of
true.
dedication is real. Like you give a shit at the end of the
Yeah,
day, right? You want to be better at all costs. And I'm sure there's been times in your career where you've been injured, and there'll definitely be times in the future where you're injured. And how you handle those spurts of time that you can't train, uh, that's going to be the difference between why you become great and other people fall on the wayside, right?
100%.
When did you start working with a mental coach?
It's been almost a year and a couple months now. I started
Wow.
working with him after I lost like three consecutive tournaments in a row, like exactly the same way. I lost literally like I lost the Brazilian trials, then I lost a match at some Jits King, and then I lost another match at some local tournament here to like some random girl. All three in like very important like finals, or the Brazil one was the semifinals.
Mhm.
And it was just like I'm winning. I was winning all three of them, winning the match, and then out of nowhere something just like I don't know, something was just not clicking and gave up, basically mentally checked out and got submitted. All
Yep.
three times I was just like, what just happened? Like, and then I watch
You
my
mean,
match,
oh,
I'll be like,
sorry to interrupt, but you mean you mentally felt
yeah, I
not like
just,
giving up, but you felt something
no,
change in the match.
yeah, yeah, in
Huh.
the match. Like, after I'm like, all right, I'm winning, I was chilling, and then something just like disconnected there.
Yeah.
And then after about the third time that happened like within like 2 months.
Mhm.
I compete very often. So like that three competitions in 2 months happening the same thing, winning matches and then losing out of nowhere. My dad's like, hey, we gotta get you a mental performance coach. We gotta get you talking to someone. And
Yeah.
in my
True.
DMs a day before, this guy messaged me and goes, hey, I'm a mental performance coach looking to see if you wanted a free call. I'm like, no way.
Maybe your
Like
dad
just
set that
sitting
up.
there. Yeah, fresh in my DMs.
Yeah.
I'm like, no way, man. Sam, he's from the UK. Sam, the
That's
man
awesome.
with a plan is what I call him. He's great. I work with him about twice a month ever
Yeah.
since. And he definitely keeps me in check. He texts
Yeah.
me every day.
What do you feel is the difference there? Like, what's something tangible that you notice as a result of working with him? Obviously, it's going well, right? You're still working with him, and you're seeing success in competition. So that's we've already identified that the mental is such a big component of being a competitive athlete. But what's something like real that you notice that maybe someone else would benefit from, but they're like, nah, that would never work for me, kind of thing?
Yeah, the number one thing that he's helped me realize is intention. There has to be intention behind everything you do. Like, like from studying to training to drilling to working out. If you're not putting intention behind it, it doesn't matter if you're doing it. It's like doing it without intention is just as good as not doing it. Simple. Everything you do, you just got to put 100% intention towards it. Even if you're not finding success in what you're doing, like if you're losing rounds, but you're out there with the intention of trying your hardest, that's okay. You know, one thing that he has me do that's really helpful is like at the end of competition training and competition as well. So not like every training, like my night Tuesday, Thursdays that are lighter, I don't do it, but like my intentional trainings that are like this is competition round. I have a little worksheet that I do at the end of the training that it has like my controllables. So the
Hmm.
five things you can control. He always tells me like you can't control who you're fighting. You can't
Yeah.
control your coach. You can't control the ref. You can't control the crowd. You can't control whether you win or you lose.
Right.
All of those things are out of your control. But there's five things you can control. You can control your body language, your attitude, your energy, your effort, and your competitiveness. Those five things are things you can always control no matter what. When you're going into training and going into competition, those are five things that no one else can control but you. So if
Yeah.
I'm going into rounds and my effort and energy are low, my body language is low, and I'm coming into training with a terrible attitude and bad mindset, my competitiveness is low, it's bad. It's already off to a bad start. But if I'm going into training and I'm like, you know what, I have high energy, high effort, my body language is good, like I'm very intentional. Like I will wake up in the morning and like pull my clothes out of the drawer and be like, all right, what kit will I wear today? I want to look good. I want to feel
Yeah.
good, Like I'm everything from picking nogi,
Yeah.
to, going out to go train, I'm very intentional with everything I'm doing, So I'll definitely like my body language is always high when I'm coming into training. My attitude is always high when I'm coming into training. So what we do is we rate those from a scale of 1 to 10. And he says
After training.
after training.
Yeah.
He says no sevens because seven is like that neutral number that like
Yeah.
I was a seven today. There's
It's a
a
safe
big
number.
difference between an eight and a six. All
Yeah.
right, I'm like I was a six in training.
Yeah.
I was an eight in training. You can't say I was a seven. Because then you're just gonna be neutral. I was a seven today. You're not really being honest with yourself. And the goal with the worksheet is to just be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have bad days. Some days. I remember there was this one time that he was like, "Dude, you got fours." I had like fours all across the board. He was like, "What's with the fours?" I was like, "I don't know, man." I was like, I was really tired. It was like the end of the week. It was a long training week. I was like, yeah, I'm feeling really tired this week. He was like, how much energy did you have like this, like going into training? I was like, I think I had like 50%. He goes, how much of that 50% did you give? I was like, 50% of it. He's like, so you gave 100%. I was like,
Mm.
huh. So I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
He goes, if you only have 50% and you went into training with 50% and you gave 50%, you should have scored yourself a 10.
Yeah.
Is that a 4? And I was like, huh. It's like it's an interesting way to think about it instead of thinking, I'm already starting bad.
Well,
So
that
I
that right there, that's an adjustment in your mindset, right? Because you go into
100%.
that and you have that moment with him like, "Whoa." And then every time you go forward from that, you're like, "Wait, no, I am training at a 10." And that builds self-confidence, that builds
Exactly.
posture, that builds energy. And then when you go to travel, you sleep in a hotel, you sleep like shit, the food sucks at the hotel, you barely make weight, and then you show up to the game and you feel like a 50%. You go, "No, because I've done this
No,
before." Right?
exactly. That
And so you
that
step on
comes
there
from
like a
training.
warrior.
Exactly. Like there's some days I'm like, man, I don't want to train. I have this headache. I'm not feeling good. My dad's
Mhm.
like, just train. Because like you might show up the
Yeah.
day of the competition with that same headache. He's like, you gotta figure it out now. Like figure it out now, so when you go out there, it's easier. So it's all about giving what you got. If you have
Yeah.
50%, give that 50%. That's it. If you have 100%, you need to give 100%. That's it. Give what you got. You need to give 100% effort every time you're doing something.
I always think, especially in combat sports and grappling, everything like under that umbrella, you guys are all so fucking good. By the time you step on the mat, right, you're all absolute killers. You're not going to go step into a WNO event and go against someone who's pretty good that trains sometimes. You're going to go against a killer who wants to kill you. That's
100%.
what you guys are there to do. And so what does that actually boil down to in the event? 90% of the time, it's going to come down to a mental battle between who wants it more and who's better prepared to get it. And that comes down to, on top of the physical training, the hard work, eating right, sleeping as much as you can, foregoing social opportunities, staying focused, showing up early, all those things. It's that plus, did you train your brain to be better all the time? Because this is one day. That's the craziest thing about fight sports is you train, 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 and then you just hope that on this random day in the future that a promotion's agreed upon because they can get film crews and production and they can get staff, they can get everyone there and they can market it with other people and crisscross schedules, that on some day on August 10th, way in the future, that you just expect to show up and perform. It's ludicrous. So if you're not
100%.
super tight upstairs all the time, every day, how can you expect to be even decent? That's why it,
Yeah,
it blows my mind that more people don't talk about or don't mention like their mental training components of it because that's such a crucial part. And if you do look to bigger sports all over the world, the top people are all working with someone, just like they work with a trainer. It's like the two go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other
100%.
for all the insights that you just said.
Yeah, at this level right now, it's a game of inches. You know,
Totally.
it's all about getting them little inches on everything you do. Like we're all training hard, we all work out hard, we're all drilling hard. It's about everything. You got to make everything perfect. You have to have a good strength conditioning coach, a good jiu-jitsu coach, a good training partner, a good mental coach, a good nutritionist, a good physical therapist, a good stretching coach. There's got to be everything. There's
I know.
everything. You
I
got to
know.
think about
So funny.
everything. And that's how you win. It's a game of inches. It's not a one man show. A lot of people are like jujitsu's a single man sport. It's not.
Well,
You need a
especially
team.
less and less and less and less too, right? Because more people are talking about what goes into making them who they are in terms of their
100%.
preparation. I mean, on that note, what is recovery like for you? Because you're training an insane amount. I mean, you're training. You said jujitsu every day, strength and conditioning 4 days a week. What does physical therapy work look like for you? What does recovery work look like? Stretching. How do you pack that all into your schedule?
Yeah, of course. Usually like after Tuesday, Thursday training, in between like the fight sports training and the night training, we'll do like an ice bath and an Epsom salt and things like that. Usually when I come home every night, I have a tub, so I just fill that thing up and throw some Epsom salt in there. So I do that just about every night.
Yep.
So that's just like you have to do that every day. You just got to be on top of like every day, like ice, heat, ice, heat. You just got to be
Yeah.
very consistent with it and things like that. It's not like a once a week thing. You can't go like, oh, once a week I'm gonna do it. With how much you're training, you need to just make it like a part of a habit. It's just got to be a
Yep.
habit. Everything in my training is habitual. Everything I do is on a schedule, on a calendar, so I don't think about it. That's another thing my mental coach helped me with. That was the first thing we did actually. Was she was like, "You have a schedule of your day-to-day activities?" And I was like, "No." He was like, "You don't have a schedule?" I was like, "No." I was like, I know I have to be there and I go do it. He's like, "No, no, no." He's like, "We're gonna put it all on a calendar." So we put it all into like a Google Calendar. And
Yep.
he was like, and then every day my alert's like, "Hey, it's time to go do this. It's time to do this." It helps you not think like what's next. It's
Right.
already there. It's you got to be a creature of habit in the highest level. You just gotta go, go, go. What's next? Oh, I gotta be here. I'm going. You have
Yep.
to You have to be habitual with everything you're doing, you know? If you're not, you're already behind. You know, there's already
Totally.
somebody else out there doing it. So you got to stay on top of your habits and you got to stay on top of everything you're doing, and consistency is key. I can't say that enough, you know, with everything. Consistency is key.
I'm
Everybody hears
laughing.
it.
I'm laughing.
Everybody hears it, but I don't think anybody really digests what it means, you know? Consistency is key. Just stay consistent.
I'm
Eventually,
I'm
it'll all work
laughing
out.
now because I post that all the time for 10 plus years, and all my friends give me shit for it because I say consistency is king 24/7, 365. Like it is my absolute mantra because it's true. I mean, you can take the smallest habit. Like you have trouble getting to the gym, but you set your gym bag out every night right by the door. Every night you do that. And then the first thing you see when you get up is that. You do it every single day. You're going to be going to the gym in 2 days. Like it's how you iron things in, it's how you create better trajectory in the future. And it's what the best people in the world do. Like there's not high performing people that don't have structured habits in their life. Period. It's just part of what the best people do. And it can be small or it can be huge or it can be small and you can work it up into something much more impactful. But it's Sam, the man with the plan, indeed. I mean, it sounds like he got you to really think about
You
like
got
what
me
the
on
week
point,
looks like.
man. For real. Yeah, it's definitely, and it's not just like with good habits too. It's like it helps you pay attention to bad habits as well. So
Hmm.
if your day is planned out and you're doing everything you need to do, you start to weed out what's like, you know, a bad habit that you were doing that was a part of your daily life that you didn't even realize. Like
Hmm.
little things that are like, you know what, maybe I should do that. I should just continue to do this, you know? So planning out your day and being structured and things like that keeps you not just focused on the good, but keeps the bad out too. Because if you have too much, like if you don't have a schedule and you're just like, oh, maybe now it's time to go work out. Oh, maybe not.
Yeah,
You
don't
know,
work
like
like that.
it doesn't work like that. You just
Well,
gotta
and for
stay
someone
with the
like
plan.
yourself, what's one of the things you're rating? Your energy. And your energy is spread across all the things in your life. So if 25% of your daily energy is going to scheduling or trying to figure out where you're supposed to be or how you're supposed to get there or what you're supposed to do, now everything you do is done at
Is that
75%
75%?
at a baseline.
It's terrible.
I wish we could get everyone on the world on a schedule. Although I'm sure there's some people out there that like don't jive with scheduling like that. But I
Yeah.
look at strength and conditioning the same way. Like if I don't plan it out in my week, it doesn't get done. It just doesn't. It slips by, and all of a sudden it's
That's like
Friday.
going to the gym without an idea of what you're gonna do.
Horrible. The worst thing that you can do. I mean, I'll say that all day. Like that's just fitness. That's not
You
training. It's
know?
just fitness. It's and what do you see? You go and you see tons of people just walking around on a treadmill, or it's like, where are you going?
Yeah. Where are you going?
How do you?
Exactly.
Who does your strength and conditioning? Is that something you guys do as a family? Do you work with a coach specifically on that?
I have a coach. Yeah, I have a coach. My coach. I have like two coaches. So it depends on what I'm working.
Hmm.
Right now I'm working with this coach. He is a ex NFL player.
Yeah,
So he's very, he
he's a
doesn't play
beast.
around.
Yeah.
He doesn't play around. Yeah. So we all work out together, and he has us each doing our own thing. You know. So he's very on point.
When it comes to like strength and conditioning and your experience with wrestling and just like the stand up aspect and then the ADCC rule set, where do you feel is like a weakness in your game that you're trying to address specifically so that you can continue to compete at a high level?
With strength and conditioning.
Yeah, like is strength and conditioning an element that you feel like is limiting you in performance, or
Yeah,
is there?
I definitely am trying to get a little more athletic. I've gotten so much more athletic within this last year. I've taken my strength and conditioning so serious, more serious than I would like to say my jiu-jitsu, honestly, because my jiu-jitsu has always been, you know, really good. But
Yep.
if you don't have like the physicality to match
Mhm.
it doesn't work out, you know. So I've definitely been working a lot on my strength and conditioning, as well as a lot of my wrestling, you know. So I want to. You know, I want to be able to, you know, go take somebody down and put them down and be like, all right, you know, I'm a wrestler now. You
Yeah,
know?
why did you feel drawn more towards the ADC like ADCC rule set versus IBJJF versus Nogi, IBJJF, like what was it about ADCC where you're like, this is my shit. Like this is what I really want to dive into. I love this.
I really like how the pace is always just being pushed. I
Mhm.
hate being stalled.
Yeah.
IBJJF just allows
So
way
do
too
the
much
fans.
stalling. I hate stallers. There's nothing I hate more. I just want to go out there and scrap. I just you and me in the middle, let's scrap. That's it. I don't want to be losing by an advantage and them stalling and running out of bounds.
Mhm.
If I get a takedown and it goes out of bounds, it resets on my feet in the middle. Like, no, I want to run you into the concrete, into a table with a TV, and still get my 2 points. Like I don't care.
Looking for that WWE contract.
For real, ADCC just pushes that pace,
Yeah.
and there's just like a totally different vibe there than I feel at the
Does it
IBJJF
feel like
tournaments.
jujitsu?
No, no, it feels like fighting. Like it feels like grappling. It's like it doesn't feel like a jiu-jitsu tournament, like yeah, you guys at a regular jiu-jitsu tournament. Like it feels like we're in a fight. Like we're gonna really scrap it out.
It looks that way. I mean, I think the ADCC's done a fantastic job of creating a product so rooted in jujitsu, but gives a little bit more tenacity and excitement to the point where if you're a hobbyist and a practitioner and you have friends over that aren't, they might actually sit down and watch an ADCC match and kind of be
Exactly.
like, yo, what's going on? Like that. Oh, I kind of get it. He tackled him or, whatever they say, but they
It's
can see
exciting.
two people. It's exciting. Whereas, and I think this is a bummer and I love gi jiu-jitsu and I'm a big fan of the history of the sport, but it's hard for someone to understand what's happening if they don't train because it doesn't look
True.
like anything's going on. Even judo is like, oh shit, he just threw that guy on his neck or he kicked his
Wrestling
leg. I
too.
get what's going on. Or wrestling, right? You can understand the athleticism and the demands, but gi jiu-jitsu is hard if you don't understand grips, you don't understand the positions or how it's scored, it makes zero sense to you.
I mean, I still watch Jiu-Jitsu,
Same.
right? I watch
Train it all the
Worlds
time. Yeah.
every year. I got my 3 laptops set up watching like every mat at the same time, and I am still confused sometimes. All right, like
Yeah.
how did that lapel get in there? Like I'm like,
Oh,
so I can only imagine like a regular, average, ordinary person watching jiu-jitsu is, is not going to understand gi jiu-jitsu, whereas ADCC, you can bring anybody and they can watch an ADCC match and be like, oh, they're running off the mat. Oh, he's tackling that guy to the ground. Oh, they slammed him. Like there's so much excitement behind the ADCC rule set, and it pushes for that excitement. Their rules are meant for that. It's in the name. It's
yeah.
ADCC. It's not IBJJF Jiu Jitsu. It's Abu Dhabi Combat Club. This is a
Right.
combat. This is a combat sport. It's about fighting, and that's what I really like about it because I like to just go out there and fight. I like to go
Yeah.
out there and just scrap. And that's what it's all about.
So I'm sure that at some point in your life you've put on gloves and shin pads and you've sparred, right? So
Oh, I
you know
haven't
it's coming, right?
actually. You know
What?
what? I haven't. I am being peer pressured by everybody right now to go fight
Well,
MMA.
but it totally makes sense. Like listen to what you're saying about yourself, right? You
Yeah.
love to fight, and I don't think you're lying. I think you're being super honest. Like it's very much in who you are. I think it sounds like you're drawn towards those types of interactions. That's why you like ADCC. You're if you watch your matches, they don't suck, right? You guys are going like hand and fist trying to get to the end of it and get a submission. So it's not like you're letting up. So have you thought about trying that? Like, is there something about that that you
Okay.
go, "Oh no, I like that. Fuck that. Like, I don't want anything to do with that."
I mean, like up until like a year ago, I was definitely like, fuck that. I'm not doing that. I don't want to get hit in the face. But as of like this last year, I've been working with a lot of UFC fighters and working with a lot of
Mhm.
MMA fighters. And I just like, I don't know, like I like the idea of being number one at everything, and like for me to think like, you know what, I could probably be number one in the UFC. Like it gives you that like,
Do you
yeah,
think
maybe
that?
I'll do it. Yeah, I definitely. I see like the girls at the top, and I'm like, nah.
All right.
You
Well,
know,
look, if you think
like,
that, I'm sorry, but if you think that and you're
but
this good at jujitsu, you kind of can't not do it then.
but I have goals
Or
for
it's
my
all talk.
jiu-jitsu. Like I definitely have like things I want to hit with my jiu-jitsu career before I even think about MMA. Like my jiu-jitsu is before anything else. Like I have so much love for jiu-jitsu that I'm like, I have things that I want to win in jiu-jitsu before I ever think about pursuing an MMA career. Which I
Okay.
already spoke to my dad about.
ADCC gold, you're gonna probably get that,
That's
right?
next year.
WNO gold, you're
That's
probably
next
gonna get
year.
that.
That's
Okay,
this
so we're
year.
at 22, 23 years old, right?
That's it. 25, 25 maybe.
25. So, but
Yeah,
do you kind of look at, because I look at that timeline and I go, okay, you're 21 right now?
21. Yeah.
21. All right. So 4 years, right? 4 years, your jiu-jitsu is not going to get worse, but in 4 years, your striking could get really good if you are
That's it.
surrounded by Vicente
Next year
Luque,
I
Gilbert
wanna
Burns,
start
and your dad.
exactly. And next year I want to start working my hands and see if it's something I really want to get into it. But I definitely want my striking to be superb before I even think about a career in MMA because I feel like a lot of people in jiu-jitsu just go, "Oh, I can go with mediocre striking and amazing jiu-jitsu." It doesn't work like that. It doesn't,
Yeah.
You need your hands to be good. You need
Well,
hands to
yeah,
protect you.
and you need them to set stuff up. Like if you know your wrestling's good, you know
Exactly.
your takedown's good, and you're comfortable on the ground, great. But can you get there? That's a different question. And we
Yeah.
see, I mean, like Buchecha's transition went pretty phenomenal. I mean, the guy's matches have been incredible, and seeing him get the submissions are like just such a nod to jujitsu. It's awesome, but that's not always the case. You're right. I mean, a lot of times you get the shift over, and then someone gets kicked in the head for the first time, full bore, and it's not what they wanted.
Deer in headlights.
How
Like
much how much are people just chirping in your ear though? I mean, you have the greats
so
of MMA
much.
every day at
You don't
your
even
training.
understand. At which ADC Denver Open,
Yeah.
I fought Rose Namajunas over there, right?
Mhm.
And I submitted her, and after the event,
Who's
or
she? No,
yeah, yeah,
I'm
right
joking.
before,
That's a
right before
joke.
I
That's a
fought her,
joke.
yeah, right before I fought her, she was fighting a match, and her husband Pat was sitting there, and she was doing something, and I told him I was like, hey, tell her not to do that, like she's gonna get penalized. He was like, all right, thanks. So
Yeah.
and then he was like, come here. I had no idea who he was actually at the time,
Yeah.
and then I like sat next to him. He goes, coach her, coach her. Mind you, we hadn't met. So I'm like coaching Rose into a victory to fight me next.
Yeah.
So, and then we fought. I submitted her after the event. We passed information. He's like, hey, come to our house tonight. Let's hang out. I'm like,
Oh, right. They live in Denver.
no way. I'm literally like catching a flight in the morning at like 5 a.m. I'm like, you know what? I'm about to go to Rose Namajunas' house and hang out with her.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, I went, I hung out with her, I hung out with Pat, and then he was like, so you're gonna fight MMA? I was like, I didn't plan on it. He was like, why not? I was like, I don't know. It's like not something I really thought about a lot. He was like, come on, come on. I'm like, where are we going? So he takes me to his garage
Yeah.
and they have like mat space. He puts on mitts. He's like, all right, show me a 1-2. I'm like, what? I'm like, what's happening? So we're like hitting a bunch of combos. He looks at me. I swear, he looks me dead in the eyes. He goes, when you're ready to start your MMA career, you text me, all right?
Wow.
I
That's
was like,
incredible.
I was like, okay. And then I had just started a couple weeks prior to that. I had just started. Look at the boss. Look at this guy.
Damn.
A
There he
couple
is.
weeks prior to that, um, I started working with this girl. Her name's Adiani Lipsky. She's a UFC fighter. They call her the Queen of Violence. I just started training her jiu-jitsu for UFC. And I started going with her to Amanda Nunes' gym over there at the Lioness Studio and like training alongside them all the time. I'm like, man, I could probably be so good at this. Like,
Yeah.
and then, like Gilbert's at our gym all the
Yeah.
time. Luke Vicenzo always here. We have so many fighters. So
Yeah.
it's just like, it's hard not to start looking at it and think, like, you know what? Maybe.
Well, I mean, I'm a hobbyist here, so full disclosure, right? Take my opinion with a grain of salt. But watching the UFC for as long as I have and been a fan of the sport and then training
Hmm.
jiu-jitsu, I feel like if you have wrestling or you have jiu-jitsu engine cardiovascularly, like if you're capable of doing 6 matches at 5 minutes, back to back to back to back to get a gold or something like that, you have one of the hardest elements to learn, which is that tenacious engine that doesn't stop, right?
100%.
If you I would imagine that it is going to be a harder transition for someone who just does striking to pick up jiu-jitsu and wrestling later in their life than it is for someone with that as a base to learn how to effectively strike and move and get footwork and timing and all that kind of stuff.
I
So
agree.
for you to keep excelling and just be dominant in the sport at the same time that you have that on the back burner as a possibility while you're surrounded by Rose and Vicente and Gilbert and your dad and all these people, like, you could be in a worse situation, right?
I agree.
But that brings us to the next
That's
thing at
a plan
hand.
B, you know?
Yeah, well, plan A is WNO, Ffion
Yes.
Davies coming up. How do you win this fight?
I'm gonna submit her.
Do you want to Gordon Ryan it, fold it up in a piece of paper, and give it to me, and we'll read it when the thing happens? What submission do you think that you'll hit? How do you set it up against someone like her, who's, you know, someone coming off multiple wins, dominant, tenacious fighter? Not that you aren't, but what's the game plan going into that?
I think she's obviously like a very aggressive fighter. I like that. You know, it's gonna be a very scrappy, in your face kind of fight. But I think I got a couple of things. One, I think my cardio is way better. I think I'm gonna push that. And two, I definitely think that I'm very creative. You know, I have a lot of creative submissions, and I think I'm gonna catch her probably with something she's probably never seen before. You know, so
How does creativity work in a match like that? Like, is that intuitive? Is that stuff where you guys are training and you're just kind of brainstorming? Hey, what if this
yeah,
comes up? Like, how
definitely,
do you
definitely a
use
lot of
creativity?
brainstorming. You know, just a lot of brainstorming, and just like seeing certain positions that I've seen her in, and positions that I like, and different submissions that I do from there that are not orthodox or people are not really used to seeing or even used to defending. You know, if you're not practicing that in the training room, it's gonna be really hard for you to defend that out there on the big stage. You know, so I definitely think that that's gonna help me secure a victory.
When you
But
when
continue.
you look at a grappler like Davies, what do you see as her best strength? Like, if you had to make the argument for her being a phenomenal grappler, what is it that stands out to you that you know that you're going to have to address that 100% in camp? Well, in day-to-day training. I know you don't like camps.
She's very forward. She's a very fighter. She's very aggressive. She's just hitting that wall over and over again. You know, she just keeps going. Just keeps going. You know, and I'm fine with that. You know, I think she's got very good top pressure and things like that. Um, but I don't think it's anything special or anything I haven't seen before.
I think it's going to be exciting. I love that it's. Do you think that your career can get to a place where you headline a WNO?
Oh, definitely. I'm already right there, man. I'm only 21 and I'm co-main event.
It's
Headlines.
incredible.
Headlines gonna happen.
If you take this belt, I mean, actually, as an athlete, do you even think like that? Like, do you think past your objective?
Yeah, definitely. You know, there's definitely like a couple of people I haven't fought that I want to fight. You know, she was definitely one of them. I am still like waiting for Bianca Bastilio to call me any day with a contract. You know, I feel like she'd be such a fire fight. There's so many people that you know my weight. Natalie Ribeiro, I also want to fight. There's just so many people that like have so much jiu-jitsu experience, you know, and have so many accolades that I'm like, you know, I want to fight them. You know, like and just test myself, you know, and see where I'm at. You know, obviously I want to win ADCC. I don't want to win it once. I want to win it. I want to win it as many times as I can win it, just to secure like, hey, I'm the goat. You know, like that's it. I just want to be the best. You know, I want to show everybody I'm the best. You know, that's all. That's what it's all about. You know, just being number one. I just want to be number one. That's it.
I completely respect that. I think it's an awesome way to. It's really the only way, actually. I think that you can go forward in this sport, this discipline. And if you think anything less of yourself or anything shy of wanting to be the greatest, then like, what are you doing? And you've chosen a horrible discipline to be second best in, because it's so demanding. Like, you have to believe in yourself to the nth degree, or else you're going to constantly be facing challenges that you can't overcome.
Yeah, and you really gotta. The sport's really hard because like you, especially like a match like a WNO match or something like that. There's only two people out there. One of you is gonna win, and one of you is gonna lose.
Yeah.
That's it. Like that's it. So you gotta go out there ready to do everything in your willpower to be the one who wins. Everything you can to win. And I have that. I have that mentality, and I have that mindset. Like I'm out there. A lot of people have that mindset. Like I want to prove everybody wrong. Like that Mamba mentality.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant used to be like, I want to go out there and prove everybody wrong. I get that. But I have that mentality that I just want to prove myself right. I
Yeah.
know that I can be the best. I don't want to go out there and prove everybody wrong. I want to go out there and show myself what I can do because I know I can do it. That's the mindset.
Well, to close here, in a post fight interview, I kind of love this. You had mentioned that Andre Galvao referred to you as for those that are listening and not watching the video right now, rewind that and go watch the video because that was the exact reaction that I thought I would get. When you hear something like that, right, constantly referred to as Vagner Rocha's daughter, Vagner Rocha's daughter, how do you how do you shine in your own solar system when your father is as much of a legend as he is and all the training comes out of his school? Like, what? How do you get to that level where you are the standalone?
I feel like I'm getting there. I told him the other day, I was like, you better step it up, man. Soon enough, you're going to be JRD, Jasmine Rocha's dad. And I'm big on that.
Yeah.
We're very competitive in this family. So I'm stepping it up. As long as I keep doing what I'm doing and I keep striving to be number one, everyone's gonna know my name. They're not gonna think Vagner Rocha's out. They're gonna be like, that's Jasmine Rocha. And that's it. I have this story. It's the most phenomenal story ever. When I was 16 years old, my dad sent me to IBJJF Nogi Worlds for my second year of juvenile. My first year, I went out there with him. I got double gold. My That was my juvenile one. My juvenile 2 year, he was like, "Hey, I'm not gonna go. You still want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to go." So he sends me out there by myself. I have this terrible weight cut. I wasn't training right. It was just like everything was just not adding up. And I lost. I got second in my weight and third in the absolute. I mean, for a worlds, it's not that bad. But you
But
know
for
me. I'm
Jasmine
like,
Rocha, not
yeah,
very good.
I'm at different standards.
Yeah.
And after my match, I like am like crying with my second and third place medal. I'm like super upset. I'm like walking out the bathroom wiping my tears, and it's Andre Galvon and Angelica Galvon standing there. And then I like asked to take a picture of Andre, and he's like staring at me. And I'm like, why is he staring at me? Like I've met this man so many times at this point. At 16, I've already met him so many times because him and my dad used to be really good friends. And he was like, man, where do I know you from? I was like, oh, I'm Wagner's daughter. He was like, oh, Wagner Rocha's daughter, yeah. And I hate when people call me that, right? And Angelica turned to me, and Angelica, I don't know if she remembers this, but I remember this. Angelica turned to me and was like, "Listen," she was like, "Don't worry about what other people call you." She was like, "Remember, Mackenzie Dern used to be Megaton's daughter, but who's Megaton now?" She was like, "That's." She was like, "Now it's Mackenzie Dern's dad." And I remember being such a Mackenzie Dern fan at the time. I'd never thought about that. I was like,
Yeah.
huh. I was like, what a good like way to look at it.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I always told him, I was like, you watch out, Dad. I was like, real soon. I was like, I'm gonna be like the next Mackenzie Dern is the way I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what, like eventually my time will come. And I remember them saying that to me, and I remember saying that, and I was like, man, it's like, well, how powerful is that? The
It's
one day
super powerful.
that's gonna be reality. And then, funny enough, on stage, he still called me Jasmine Roche, Wagner Rocha's daughter, and I was like, dude, like I remember like when he said that, it was like I was like making weight, and I was so upset. I was like, can you guys believe that he's still calling me Wagner Rocha's daughter? And my dad's like, don't stress it, don't stress it. And then when they gave me the mic, I had to tell him. I had to put him on blast. I had to be like, dude, like, come on.
You know what
He
though?
still called me the wrong name after that, bro.
He'll probably
Oh,
one day be like, when he's got a cane and a walker, be like, Jasmine, come here, and he'll be like, I said it to make you tougher, like.
bro, if one day he says that to me, I'm gonna be like, dude, it worked.
He's like doing it to, you've seen that in a movie like a million times where they're like on their deathbed and they're like, come closer.
Yeah, but
I
after
called you
the
his daughter
event,
to
I came
make you
up to
tough.
him. After the event, he came up, gave me a hug. He was like, "You did so good, Jasmine," and we were all talking, and it was so chill. But I meant no disrespect by that. He took it exactly how I meant
Yeah,
for him
no,
to take it.
it was heartfelt and there was humor in it. And with your, I don't know, I feel like you're too dedicated to not get everything that you want to accomplish. With the way that I've been around so many athletes in my life, and just the way that you're thinking about the things that you are, like it's clear that one, this matters to you, and two, you're doing the shit necessary to make it happen. And you're thinking about it from a habit standpoint. These are everyday things for you. And when it's like that, it's time, right? You just have enough time and you end up getting the things done that you want to get done. I would hate to see a dispute settled in your household. Like how do you guys when
Uh,
someone forgot the groceries or something, like how do you settle that? You got monsters in there. They're just capable of submitting each other all at different times. It must be fun.
no, it is. We're a very competitive family with like everything we do. I mean,
Yeah.
you name it, we're competitive. Like we do everything like it's a competition. Like
So who do you think had a better episode?
I don't know. I didn't even watch his. Mine was probably already bad. No, I did watch your
Oh
guys's.
yeah.
Your guys's was pretty good. I
Yeah,
mean,
it was great.
I think I take number one, but whatever. That's
Undisputed episode queen. Very good
for real.
stuff, Jasmine. It's been awesome having you on, getting to pick your brain. I'm super excited for the WNO event and the future of your career. I mean, if you're already doing garage sessions with Namajunas and getting your feet wet in the striking world, I feel like a UFC debut is inevitable. It's just a matter of time before you accomplish all your ADCC goals and your IBJJF goals and everything and make it happen. So I'm excited to continue to watch your career, and we'll definitely have to have you back on in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do it, man.